Story number 1. The Abandoned School's Cry. Let me tell you about the night I learned some places don't let go of their ghosts. I took the job at a school because I needed the money. Substitute teaching doesn't pay squat, and the ad said light custodial work, flexible hours. The school had been closed since 1987, but the district kept it standing for storage. Old desks, textbooks that still called Pluto a planet, boxes of chalk dust that made me sneeze. The principal warned me, "Don't go upstairs after dark. Floorboards are rotten." But it wasn't the floorboards that worried me. The key stuck in the lock, rusted from years of neglect. The foyer smelled like mildew and the kind of damp that gets into your bones. My flashlight caught a faded mural on the wall. Smiling kids holding hands around a tree that had more cobwebs than leaves. I'd just finished mopping the cafeteria when I heard it. A child crying. Not the dramatic wail of a kid who skinned their knee. This was raw, gulping, like they'd been at it for hours. It came from upstairs. "Hello?" My voice bounced off the lockers. "Anyone there?" Silence. I told myself it was the pipes. Old buildings groan, right? But the sound came again. Closer now, drifting down the stairwell. Sniffles, whimpers, a hiccup. I texted my boyfriend, Jake. "This place is creeping me out. Sounds like a kid crying upstairs." He replied, "Prob a cat. Finish up and come over?" I almost left. But the crying sharpened into a sob, so real it made my chest ache. I climbed the stairs. The air turned colder with each step. The hallway was a time capsule. ABC posters curled at the edges, a bulletin board announcing "Spring Recital 1986" in cheerful letters. Classroom doors hung open, desks piled with moth-eaten readers. The crying led me to room 212. A nameplate dangled from the door. Ms. Walsh. Inside, the blackboard was smeared with chalk dust, like someone had tried to erase a message in a hurry. The windows were sealed with plywood, but moonlight seeped through the cracks, painting the room in jagged stripes. In the corner sat a tiny desk, its surface carved with initials. TM. The crying stopped. Something shuffled behind me. I spun, flashlight shaking. The hallway was empty. But on the floor, just outside the door, lay a red mitten. It was wool, old-fashioned, the kind with a snowflake pattern. Frozen stiff, like it had been left in a freezer. I dropped it into a lost-and-found box in the office and tried to forget. But the next night, it was back. Same spot outside room 212. This time, the desk in the corner was overturned. The library's microfiche machine smelled like burnt toast. The librarian, Mrs. Green, squinted at my request. "This school, that's been closed since the Thompson girl vanished." "Vanished?" 1986, Teresa Mayfield, second grader. They found her mitten near the boiler room, but, well, some folks say the teacher did it. The article was brief. Search continues for local girl. Police question educator. No photos of Teresa, just a quote from her mother. She loved her red mittens. She'd never wander off without them. Ms. Walsh, the teacher, was cleared. No evidence. The school shut down a year later. The crying led me downstairs this time. The boiler room door was padlocked, but the chain hung loose. Inside, the air tasted like iron. My flashlight glinted off something on the floor. A small pair of glasses, lenses cracked, and the crying. It came from the far wall, where the bricks bulged like a rotten tooth. I touched the mortar. It crumbled, wet and slimy, revealing a hollow space behind. A tiny skeleton curled in a fetal position. Red yarn clung to its finger bones. The police called it a tragedy. Teresa Mayfield had crawled into the wall during hide-and-seek. Gotten stuck. Ms. Walsh swore she'd checked the boiler room, but the cops found her lesson plans in the wall cavity. pages and pages of "I'm sorry," scrawled in looping cursive. They ruled it an accident. But I know what I saw that night. After they took the bones away, I stayed to lock up. The crying started again. Louder now, angry. In room 212, the blackboard was clean except for 2 words. "Find her. Ms. Walsh lives in a nursing home now." Her voice crackled over the phone. "I didn't mean to leave her. She was so quiet, I thought she'd gone home." A pause. Then, softer. "She's still there, isn't she?" I didn't answer. The line went dead. They're tearing down the school next month. But last night, I found a red mitten on my doorstep. And my phone keeps buzzing. Unknown number. Static. Then a whisper. Play with me. Story number 2. The Allergy Prophet. People think intuition is a gift. They're wrong. Ellie's first nosebleed happened on a Tuesday. We just moved into the new house, the one with the lilacs that smelled like cough syrup. She was swinging too high, the way kids do when they're testing gravity, when the blood dripped onto her unicorn t-shirt. The other moms handed me wet wipes and said, "Happens all the time." But when the police tape went up around that playground 2 weeks later, I started keeping a journal. July 14th, rash after daycare. Location, parking lot of abandoned Pizza Hut. August 3rd, vomiting at post office. Smell? Like old Band-Aids. I didn't connect it until the library. Ellie loved story hour. That day, she crawled under the table during Goodnight Moon, hands clamped over her ears. "Too many whispers," she said. Her lips turned blue before I got the EpiPen in her thigh. They found Mrs. Cho's body an hour later, stuffed behind the HVAC unit. Detective Voss showed up with casserole and questions. "Your girl's got a 6th sense," he said, crumbs falling onto Ellie's crayon drawings. "Let's put it to work." I should have burned that casserole. We became Voss's bloodhounds. Ellie's allergies mapped his cold cases. A sneeze at the laundromat led to a wedding ring in the lint trap. Hives at the drive-in theater uncovered bones under screen 3. Voss called it allergy dowsing. I called it survival. But Ellie? She changed. Her kindergarten teacher sent home drawings, black scribbles over stick figures. "They're sad," Ellie said. "The shadows stick to them." At night, she'd wake up scratching her arms raw. "It's itchy under my skin," she'd whimper. The doctors prescribed steroids. The allergist shrugged. "Stress-induced urticaria." They didn't see what I saw, like the time we passed the old bridge. Ellie's nose bled so hard it soaked her car seat. "The water's full of teeth," she whispered. They dragged the river that afternoon, found a dentist's toolbox with 6 molars. Voss started bringing gifts. A scarf from a missing jogger, a keychain from a cold case. "See if she reacts," he'd say. Ellie's fevers spiked to 103 degrees. Then came the day she licked a stop sign. "Tastes like Grandpa's garage," she said. Voss found motor oil in the soil. Same grade used to dissolve a mechanic's body in '98. That's when I saw the first blister on her left palm, shiny and tight like a bubble of glue. When it popped, the fluid smelled like recognition, like walking into a room you've dreamed about. The church was Voss's idea. "My sister vanished after choir practice," he said. 1989? Ellie screamed before we turned onto the gravel road. Blood streaked her cheeks like war paint. "Make it stop!" she shrieked. "The stones are humming!" Voss carried her inside, boots crunching dead crickets. The air reeked of mold and incense. Ellie's blisters burst as we walked, leaving a trail of sticky pearls on the pews. "Under!" she gasped, clawing at the altar. "She's under the pretty lies." Voss pried up the floorboards. Dust swirled into the shape of a girl, mouth open mid-hymn. Beneath the rubble, a Polaroid of Voss at 22, shovel in hand, standing over a shallow grave. "That's not my sister," Voss whispered. "No," Ellie coughed. "It's you." The doors slammed. Hymnals flew off shelves, pages fanning like startled birds. Ellie's eyes rolled back. "He buried the bad words here," she moaned. "The ones that made Aunt Jenny disappear." Voss lunged for her. "Fix it! Undo it!" Ellie's hand shot out, blister fluid splashing his cheek. "You already did." His scream wasn't human. The coroner said Voss's heart exploded. "Stress," they concluded. "But I know what stress looks like. Ellie's backpack now carries EpiPens, expired. Hydrocortisone cream, unopened. A Ziploc of soil from the church, per her request. The blisters spread. They cluster around her neck like a collar of sap. When they burst, the scent clings. Burnt hair and birthday cake. Last month, her teacher sent a note. Ellie drew something concerning. The picture showed our house. Black smoke poured from the windows. In the driveway, a small body shaped like mine. That night, Ellie kissed my cheek. "You taste like tomorrow," she said. "I don't sleep anymore." I watch her. The way she hums nursery rhymes backward, how her shadow stays put when she moves. Yesterday, I found her chewing a photo of Voss. "It helps the itching," she said. "The doctors want to institutionalize her. But I know the truth. We're past hospitals, past prayers." This morning I found mold blooming on her bedroom wall. The pattern matches her blisters. When I touched it, the spores stuck to my fingers. Now my palms itch. Ellie just smiles. "Don't scratch, Mommy. It lets them in." I'm writing this down because soon I won't be able to. The mold's spreading. It writes faster than I do. Story number 3. The Unblinking Patient. They called him Bed 7. No name, no records, just a John Doe dumped in the ER after a hit and run. Comatose for 6 months, eyes wide open, dull and dry as frosted glass. The doctors said the lack of blinking was autonomic dysfunction. The nurses knew better. Mara noticed it first. She'd been pocketing vials of fentanyl for her boyfriend's bad back, careful to skip the camera blind spots. But Bed 7's gaze followed her. Not the darting flicker of conscious tracking, but the slow tectonic shift of a security camera panning. She covered his face with a towel. It slid off by morning, starch stiff and smelling of ammonia. The hallucination started a week later. Mara would see her boyfriend in the med room, arms swollen and mottled from missed veins. "You said it was just for pain," he'd slur, but when she blinked, he'd vanish. Bed 7's monitors would spike each time, EEG waves jagged with something like laughter. Then the texts came. "Unknown, number 12:03 a.m., I need it. Unknown number 12:04 a.m., you owe me." Her boyfriend swore he didn't send them. The area code traced to a burner bought the day Bed 7 arrived. Jin, the night charge nurse, thought it was stress. "You're spilling saline," he said when Mara misfiled a chart. But Jin had his own tells, the way he lingered near Bed 7's door after stealing Percocet for his gambling debts. Bed 7's eyes followed him too. Jin's wife found the pills in his gym bag. "Divorce," hissed through the ICU like ventilator air. The night she left, Jin swiped a scalpel from Or 4. He didn't use it on himself. They found him in the chapel, skin peeled back from his fingertips in delicate strips, the way dealers are punished in his father's homeland. Security footage showed Jin alone, but the scalpel moved with precision no trembling hands could manage. Bed 7's EEG that night? Flatline calm. The new traveler nurse, Elise, didn't believe in ghosts. She believed in the $200,000 student debt she'd erased by forging DNR orders on rich patients. "Everyone dies anyway," she'd say, smoothing a dead socialite's hair. Bed 7's eyes tracked her longest. Elise's lies unraveled first as stench. Her apartment reeked of rot, though no food spoiled. The smell clung to her scrubs. Patients gagged when she leaned close. Then the voicemail started. "Elise, it's static. Cold here. You said no pain." The voices matched her victims. The caller, ID, dates of their deaths. She quit after Bed 7's ventilator mysteriously disconnected during her shift. The alarm didn't sound for 10 minutes, exactly how long Mrs. Whitaker had gasped for air before Elise found her. Bed 7's oxygen never dipped below 98%. Mara lasted the longest. She stopped stealing, started praying. Bed 7's gaze softened, but his EEG squirmed with restless waves. Her boyfriend overdosed on a Thursday. The text log showed messages from her phone she didn't send. 10:15 p.m., come over. 10:16 p.m., I have more. The coroner ruled it suicide. Mara knew better. The syringe was left neatly on the nightstand. Her boyfriend never tidied anything. She confronted Bed 7 at 3 a.m., saline bag in hand. "What are you?" His pupils dilated. The heart monitor beeped Morse code, --. Nurse. The IV pump whirred. Fluid snaked up the tube, reversing into the bag, clear to murky brown. Mara's hands blistered as she ran. The exit doors sealed. Security found her in the biohazard incinerator room, unharmed but mute. Her scrubs reeked of burned hair and fentanyl. Bed 7 blinked once when they wheeled her out. They moved him to long-term care. Cheaper staff, fewer questions. The new night nurse, Carlos, clocks in tonight. He's got a daughter in rehab and a PayPal full of embezzled charity funds. Bed 7's eyes are wide open. His EEG hums like a tuning fork. Carlos whistles as he checks the feed. "Creepy bastard," he mutters, pocketing a vial of morphine. The heart monitor beeps. Minus. Nida. Carlos freezes. That's his daughter's name. The morphine warms in his pocket. Bed 7's gaze flicks to the camera, just once, before it goes dark. Story number 4. The subway token clerk. It started with a MetroCard swipe that didn't work. Maria Ruiz was late for her shift at Lenox Hill Hospital when the turnstile at the 116th Street station rejected her card. A flickering fluorescent light buzzed overhead as she cursed, digging for spare change. That's when she saw the booth. It shouldn't have been there. The MTA phased out token clerks in 2003, replacing them with vending machines. Yet there it was, a bulletproof glass kiosk coated in decades of grime. Its exact change only sign handwritten in faded marker. Inside sat an old man in a moth-eaten MTA vest, his face obscured by the shadow of a newsboy cap. "Token?" His voice crackled through the intercom, distorted like a subway announcement. Maria shoved $1 through the tray. The clerk slid back a single brass token, warmer than it should have been. Engraved on its edge, November 18th, 2023. "What's the date for?" she asked. The intercom hissed. When she looked up, the booth was empty, layers of dust undisturbed. Maria's brother Luis died on November 18th, 2023. Hit by a 3 train at Union Square. Security footage showed him standing too close to the edge, head cocked like he'd heard his name called. Witnesses swore the train hadn't honked. The token fell from his pocket during the autopsy. They found each other through Reddit threads and community board flyers. Emily Chen, whose fiancé received a token dated June 15, 2023, before drowning in a flooded tunnel during a storm. Darnell Wright, whose grandmother got 9/28/23 days before a collapsed ceiling crushed her at Hoyt Schermerhorn. Irina Petrov, whose teenage son's token read 02.0924, the day he vanished between the Atlantic Avenue and Barclays stops. All described the same clerk. All were told by MTA investigators no such employee exists. Darnell worked in archives at the Brooklyn Historical Society. He dug through microfiche until he found the Brooklyn Daily Eagle headline from November 1st, 1923. 59 dead in Malbone Street wreck. The article detailed the worst subway disaster before the 1991 Union Square derailment. An unauthorized motorman, Edward Luciano, had taken control of a 5-car train during a strike. He sped through the Malbone Street Tunnel, now Empire Boulevard, derailing on a sharp curve. 59 passengers were crushed or electrocuted. A single paragraph caught Irina's eye. Survivors claimed a clerk distributed farewell tokens at the Prospect Park station hours before the wreck. The MTA denied the claims, citing no registered employees at that booth. Emily tracked down Lillian Ward, 103, the disaster's last living survivor. Lillian's hands trembled as she held Maria's token. He gave me one too. November 1st, 1923. I dropped it on the platform. The train took my legs instead. She described the clerk in detail. A newsboy cap. A scar cutting through his left eyebrow. Smelled of wet coal and copper. They called him Eddie, she whispered. Edward Luciano's employee file listed no photo, only a disciplinary note. Terminated November 2nd, 2023 for reckless endangerment. The termination date was 1 day after the crash. The committee cross-referenced token dates with MTA incident reports. March 10th, 2024. A track fire at Bowling Green matched a token given to a tourist from Ohio. July 4th, 2023, a power surge electrocuted a musician at Times Square on Independence Day. Each death mirrored the Malbone Street victims' injuries, crush wounds, burns, electrocution. He's balancing the scales, Darnell said. 59 deaths in 1923. 59 tokens now. Maria waited at the Prospect Park station until 3 a.m., Luis's token in hand. The booth reappeared as the downtown train rattled past. "Why him?" she demanded, slamming the token against the glass. The clerk looked up. Lillian's description didn't prepare her for his eyes. Glossy black, like wet subway rails. "No fare goes unpaid," he rasped. The token burned her palm. When she dropped it, the ground vibrated, not from an approaching train, but something deeper. The walls dripped rust-red liquid smelling of iron and ozone. "Edward Luciano died that night," Maria shouted. The clerk smiled, revealing teeth filed to points. "Eddie's still driving." The 3 trains screamed into the station, its headlights illuminating the clerk's vest. The MTA logo peeled back to reveal a 1923 crew patch. The MTA closed the station for emergency repairs after Maria's body was found on the tracks. Her token, dated May 14, 2024, had been stamped paid in full. Darnell and Irina dissolved the committee. Emily moved to Pittsburgh, but last week a new post appeared on r/NYC:"creepy token clerk at Fulton Street. Anyone else see him?" Attached was a photo of a brass token engraved 10/31/24. The MTA's response was immediate. "No such employee exists." Edward Luciano's file now lists his termination date as pending. Story number 5. The hidden room behind the wall. These apartments were built in 1936, a Depression-era project meant to house dock workers. By 2023, its rent-controlled units attracted grad students, artists, and anyone desperate enough to ignore the condemned notices plastered over the boiler room. I moved into 3B because it was the only place that didn't ask for a credit score. The super, Sal, handed me keys crusted with decades of paint flecks. "Don't mind the drafts," he said. "Walls got more gaps than a politician's promises." The first storm hit on a Tuesday. Rain lashed the single-pane windows, and the radiator hissed like a nest of vipers. That's when I heard the crying. Not the wind, but a child's whimper, sharp and rhythmic, like a skipping record. It came from behind the bedroom's faux brick accent wall. I pressed my ear to the cold surface. A man's voice cut through the static. "It's smaller tonight. The desk won't fit." The brick wall was a cheap veneer, the kind sold at Home Depot. I pried off a loose panel with a butter knife, expecting pipes or rotted studs. Instead, my phone's flashlight revealed a room. 6 feet deep. Floral wallpaper, bile green and peeling. A child's rocking horse, its mane matted with dust. A mahogany desk stacked with yellowed papers. The air smelled of wet wool and copper. Sal denied it. "Exterior wall," he said, emailing blueprints that showed nothing but insulation. But the room was there. The storm returned. So did the voices. "It knows I'm here," the man whispered. "It's making me choose." By morning, the rocking horse was gone. In its place, a 1970s composition notebook. Entry, October 12th, 1978. "Ellen thinks I'm paranoid. Says the super swore we're the first tenants. But last night during the storm, we found a room behind the wall. There's a typewriter. Keys stick on the E. Ellen took the bedroom. I'm sleeping on the couch." Entry, October 16th, 1978. "Ellen's gone. Cops say she left me, but her insulin's still in the fridge. The room's shrinking. The typewriter typed, 'Sorry, Ellen,' last night. I didn't touch it." Final entry, undated. "It wants a confession." "For what? I didn't mean to." The page ended in a tear. The room shifted overnight. Walls closer, ceiling lower. The desk now held a 1992 Trapper Keeper. Entry, June 4th, 1992. "Sal's predecessor Marty said the last tenant died in 78. Bullshit. Found a hair ribbon under the floorboards, pink, crusted with... Never mind. The room plays recordings. A man sobbing, a woman begging. Last night I heard my voice." Entry, June 7th, 1992. It typed a confession while I slept. "I regret the baby. I've never been pregnant. Marty says I'm stressed." Fuck him. The room's down to 8 by 8 feet. Tucked inside was a Polaroid of a woman, Ellen, slumped at the desk, her face blurred. A storm rattled the windows. The room shrank to closet size. The desk vanished, replaced by a crayon drawing taped to the wall. Stick figures in a tiny room, red scribbles swallowing them. Scrawled note, 2009. "Mommy says the wall eats bad thoughts. I drew a dragon. Now the dragon's under my bed. I can't tell Mommy. She's been crying since Daddy left." Beneath it lay a tiny sneaker, size 5. I called the county clerk. Lowell House had 12 missing persons cases since 1940, all tenants of 3B. 1942, Jacob Riley, dock worker. Vanished during a storm. Wife claimed the walls ate him. Committed to Bellevue. 1978, Ellen Carter, disappeared. Husband, diary author, found dead in the room. Coroner ruled suicide. 2009, Sophia Martinez, age 6. Last seen wearing pink sneakers. Sal showed up unannounced, reeking of bourbon. "You've been asking questions. Don't." The storm raged for 3 days. The room contracted to coffin dimensions. A cassette player appeared, looping my voice. "I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry." My own journal materialized on the floor. Entries I didn't write. Entry, today. Tore out the brick, mistake. Entry, future. Sal says I owe rent. I haven't left in weeks. The room's my whole world now. Final entry. It wants a name, someone to take my place. I'll write yours." The pen shook in my hand. Sal posted a notice. Non-payment. Vacate in 72 hours. The room's a crawl space now. Inside, something scratches. I hear Sal's voice through the wall. "New tenant moves in Friday. Young guy. Student. They'll find this journal. They always do." Lowell House listed 3B as renovated last month. The walls are freshly painted, the radiator silent. The new tenant texted Sal yesterday. "Is there a hidden closet?" I keep hearing, "Never mind." Story number 6. The Fountain. A Chronicle of Santa Lucia. I arrived in Santa Lucia on a sweltering June morning, the kind of heat that clings to your skin like a second layer. The village, nestled in the shadow of the Apennines, was a postcard of decay. Crumbling stone houses, ivy-choked chapels, and a piazza where old men played bocce under the watchful gaze of a weathered marble statue. Her name was Lucia, they told me, a noblewoman from the 16th century. Her stone hands cupped the air as if begging for rain, her eyes hollow and streaked with rust-colored stains. The clinic where I volunteered was a converted stable, its walls still smelling of hay and antiseptic. The tap water ran brown, and the lone doctor, Enzo Bianchi, chain-smoked Marlboros to mask the stench of mildew. "Don't drink from the fountain," he warned on my first day, nodding towards the piazza. "The old women say it's cursed. Me? I say it's bad pipes." I laughed. Curses were for fairy tales. But that night, parched and desperate, I filled my bottle from Lucia's basin. The water tasted metallic, like licking a battery, and left an oily sheen on my lips. The nightmares began subtly. I'd wake drenched in sweat, the taste of copper thick in my mouth, my sheets damp with something that smelled of wet limestone. By day, patients recoiled when I touched them. "Your hands are cold," they'd whisper, though my skin burned to the touch. Then came the blisters, small, fluid-filled sacs on my palms that burst into salty rivulets. Enzo dismissed it as stress. "Take a day off," he said, lighting another cigarette. "Visit the market, eat a gelato." But the market held no solace. The vendors' stares were heavy, their greetings tinged with pity. Signora Russo, the baker's widow, pressed a rosary into my hand. "Prega per la tua anima," she muttered. "Pray for your soul." I found the ledger in Enzo's office, tucked behind a jar of leeches. Its pages crackled with age, filled with names and dates from the 1950s. Patients with bone deformities, skin hardened like coral. One entry stood out. Mariah Greco, 23, osteosarcoma. Symptoms: lesions, auditory hallucinations, teeth loss. A Polaroid showed a young woman, her neck mottled with white patches, eyes clouded like the statue's. "She worked here," Enzo said, catching me staring. "Drank the fountain water every day. By the end, she couldn't swallow. Her jaw fused shut." The church archives were a crypt of dust and neglect. Father Tommaso, a priest with trembling hands, let me sift through crumbling ledgers. Lucia Orsini's name appeared once, a footnote in a 1583 baptismal record. Lucia, daughter of Count Orsini, betrothed to Della Scala. God have mercy. No death date, no grave. In the village library, a mildewed geology journal from 1972 hinted at darker truths. Dr. Luigi Rossi, a researcher, had tested the fountain's water. Strontium-90 levels exceed WHO limits. Isotope binds to calcium, mimics bone. Chronic exposure leads to ossification of soft tissue. But Rossi's lab burned in 1975. His notes, ash. The storm hit at midnight. Rain lashed the clinic windows as I crept to the piazza, crowbar in hand. Lucia's base was hollow, a hidden chamber reeking of rot and damp earth. Inside, a child's skeleton lay curled, its skull cracked. A locket engraved with the Orsini crest nestled in its ribs, a girl's face painted inside. Lucia's daughter? The rain turned the fountain's tears to blood. Thick, ruddy liquid cascaded down Lucia's cheeks, pooling in the basin. I dipped my hand in. It clung like syrup, glinting with gold flecks under my phone's light. Enzo called at dawn. They silenced Rossi, he rasped. Burned his lab. Don't let them find the... The line died. His office was ransacked. The ledger, the Polaroid, gone. 3 days later, they pulled Enzo's body from the fountain. The coroner ruled it a heart attack. But I saw his hands. Bone white, fingers fused into claws. I left Santa Lucia that night, the child's locket hidden in my bag. The blisters faded, but the thirst remained. Rainwater now tasted bitter, and puddles shimmered with that same gold sheen. Last month, a package arrived. No return address. Inside, a vial of murky water and a note in Enzo's jagged script. They're still building fountains. Santa Lucia's piazza is silent now. The fountain runs clear, and the clinic stands empty. But in nearby towns, new statues rise. Angels, saints, their eyes hollow, their basins filled with water that glints gold under the sun. Biogenics Solutions, a pharmaceutical giant, recently patented Osteoflex trademark, a calcium supplement. Their ads promise stronger bones, longer life. Story number 7. The Vanished Cafe Owner. The first time I stepped into the corner brew, Maggie was arguing with a man in a gray trench coat. Rain sluiced off his shoulders, pooling around his boots in inky puddles that smelled like rotting seaweed. "You're late," she snapped, slamming a mug on the counter. The man just smiled, a thin, lipless stretch, and stirred his coffee with a spoon that left rust-colored streaks in the porcelain. I took the booth by the window, its vinyl cracked like parched earth. The coffee tasted bitter, laced with something earthy, like mud filtered through old leaves. Maggie avoided my eyes when she refilled my cup. "Storm's coming," she said, nodding at the sky. "Big one." That night, the rain didn't stop. At 3 a.m., my phone buzzed, a missed call from Maggie. When I called back, the line hissed with static, and a voice that wasn't hers whispered, "He's here." Maggie vanished 2 days later. The police found her apron folded neatly by the sink, the espresso machine still warm. In the back office, a shoebox of unsent letters spilled across the floor, all addressed to no one, and dated every Tuesday for the past decade. March 12, 2015. He asked about the storm drains today. Says they're singing. I told him to leave. He laughed. Said I'd be singing too soon. June 7th, 2018. Found black mud in the storage room. It's moving. Not like water, like it's alive. October 30th, 2023. He's not human. I saw his face in the mirror. No eyes, just holes where the rain gets in. The last letter, dated the night she disappeared, was a single sentence. "The storm's here. I have to go." The cafe regulars remembered Mr. Ellis differently. Old Pete, the retired fisherman, swore he'd seen him since the 90s. Always orders black coffee, tips in old coins, ones with faces scratched off. Lena, the barista, recalled his coat dripping onto her textbooks. The pages warped, like they'd been underwater for years. The words, they rearranged themselves. "Meet me at the crossing," they said. But the security footage told another story. In every clip, Maggie talked to empty stools, poured coffee for no one, her reflection in the espresso machine's chrome showing a man's gloved hand on her shoulder. The basement key hung behind the register, rusted and sticky with residue. Inside, the air hummed like a live wire. River silt coated the walls, and a desk buried under sludge held Maggie's diary. November 12th, 2005. The cafe's built on a floodplain. Dad said they found bodies here in the 50s, people who vanished during storms. Mr. Ellis says they're still here, waiting. December 1st, 2022. He showed me the door. It's in the floorboards, under the third booth. Says it only opens when the rain's loud enough. Under the desk, a Polaroid. Maggie in 1998, standing beside a man in a gray coat. The date stamp read 2023. The night the levees broke, the cafe filled with black water. Mr. Ellis stood in the doorway, his coat dripping, his face a blur of rain and shadow. "Time to go," he said, and the floorboards splintered into a vortex of mud and roots. I woke in a room that wasn't a room. Walls of churning water, voices whispering in the drip, drip, drip. Maggie sat at a table made of driftwood, writing letters. "He's coming," she said, her voice echoing like a distant thunderclap. "You'll take my place. Someone always does." They found me 3 days later, miles downstream, clutching a coffee-stained envelope. Inside, a letter in Maggie's handwriting. "The storm's not done. He needs someone new." The cafe reopened last month. The new owner, a woman with tired eyes, serves bitter coffee and avoids questions. Sometimes when it rains, I see Mr. Ellis through the window, his coat dripping, his smile too wide. The letters still arrive. I keep them in a shoebox under my bed. Last night, I wrote one myself. Story number 8, The Forgotten Cemetery Ritual. The first time I heard the voices, I thought it was the wind. I'd taken a night shift as a groundskeeper at a cemetery to pay off student loans, figuring the dead were quieter than my old bartending gig. But on stormy nights, the air thickened with whispers that didn't sound like wind at all. They came from the overgrown northeast corner, where the headstones sank into the earth like rotten teeth. Mr. Donovan, the head caretaker, warned me to stay away. "That section's condemned," he said, handing me a rusted key to the tool shed. "Foundation's unstable. We're waiting on the diocese to approve demolition." But his eyes flickered when he said it, like he was lying. I should have listened. The storm hit just past midnight. Rain lashed the chapel windows as I did my rounds, flashlight beams slicing through the downpour. That's when I saw the lights, flickering orbs bobbing near the condemned section. Not flashlights, candles. I followed them, boots sinking into mud that smelled like wet ash. A dozen figures stood in a semicircle, their backs to me, hooded against the rain. At their feet, a patch of earth steamed, tendrils of mist coiling upward like snakes. A woman at the front raised her hands, voice slicing through the thunder. "You are remembered. You are loved. Be free." The ground shuddered. Not an earthquake, something slower, angrier. The headstones rattled, and the whispers surged into a chorus. "Tell them, tell them, tell them." I ran. The next morning, the mud was gone. No footprints, no candles, just a sunken patch of soil dotted with rusted nails and shards of blue glass. When I asked Mr. Donovan, he palmed his St. Christopher medal and muttered, "Kids messing around. Forget it." But I couldn't. The cemetery's archives were stored in a mildewed basement beneath the chapel. Ledgers from the 1920s listed graves in the condemned section as unmarked, unknown, unsettled. But a water-stained map from 1931 showed names. Isaiah Carter, Lena Moore, Thomas Whitaker, 11 others. No dates, no causes. The town library's microfiche was more revealing. A Banner Tribune headline from July 15, 1931. Fire ravages Negro Church, 14 dead. The article blamed faulty wiring, but a faded op-ed hinted at darker truths. Certain elements oppose the new chapel's construction. Let this tragedy unite us in peace. No follow-up stories, no funerals. The librarian, Mrs. Peeler, clicked her tongue when I asked. That land's cursed. My granddaddy said they buried the burned folks at the cemetery, but the diocese denied it, called it a rumor. The next storm brought the voices back, louder. I hid behind the tool shed, watching the hooded figures gather. This time I recognized Mrs. Peeler at the front, her hands cradling a photograph of a blackened church beam. The ritual began. Salt sprinkled on the steaming soil, blue glass shards arranged in a star. The woman leading the chant wasn't Mrs. Peeler. It was Lena Moore's great-granddaughter, a nurse from the free clinic. They erased you, she cried, rain mixing with her tears. But we won't. The ground split. Not a crack, a mouth exhaling air so cold it burned. The whispers became screams. Tell them, tell them, tell them. Mr. Donovan found me at dawn, hypothermic and clutching a charred hymnal. The condemned section was pristine. No fissure, no glass. Quit now, he said, or quit later. But you quit. I stayed. The ritual happens every storm. I join them now. We lay photos, letters, anything that proves the 14th existed. The earth never keeps them. By morning they're gone, like the grave markers. But the voices are quieter afterward. Last week the diocese approved demolition. Bulldozers arrive Monday. Mrs. Peeler says we'll chain ourselves to the headstones. The nurse says the soil will swallow them first. I'm writing this in the archives, the air thick with the smell of wet ash. The whispers are rising again. They'll keep rising. Story number 9. The desperate shout in the forest. It started on a Tuesday in late July, 3 hours into my patrol of a park's trails. I'd been a ranger there for 6 years, long enough to know the difference between the groan of shifting rocks and the cry of a wounded animal. But nothing prepared me for the scream. It came just as the storm hit, a raw, human sound that tore through the rain like a knife. I froze, radio halfway to my lips, and listened. It wasn't a coyote. It wasn't the wind. It was a man's voice, ragged and desperate, howling, "Help me, they're coming!" before cutting off with a wet, crunching silence. Dispatch laughed when I called it in. "No permits issued for the North Trails today," they said. "Probably a fisher cat, or your brain filling in gaps." But I'd heard fisher cats. They sound like babies crying. This wasn't that. 2 weeks later, I found the plaque. I'd been rerouting hikers after a mudslide clogged the Pine Creek Trail. Rain drilled into the canopy, turning the forest floor into a slurry. That's when I heard it again. The same scream, closer this time. I followed it off trail, GPS unit buzzing uselessly in my pocket until my boot struck metal. Buried under moss and pine needles was a rusted iron plaque, its edges crusted with lichen. The engraving read, "Sacred Ground, 1908 trespassers will be prosecuted." No names, no context, just those words, half swallowed by time. When I crouched to wipe the mud away, the air turned frigid. Not the chill of rain. Deeper, sharper, like the cold that seeps from freezer doors left ajar too long. My radio crackled, and for a heartbeat, the scream echoed through the static. Back at the ranger station, I dug through the archives. Blackridge's history was a patchwork of omissions. Logs from the 1930s referencing a settler dispute near Pine Creek, a fire in '58 that destroyed a homestead, and a single sentence in a 1972 Ranger's Journal. Found symbols carved near North Ridge, not native. Older. No one mentioned the plaque. The third scream came during a thunderstorm that knocked out the park's power. This time I recorded it on my phone. The audio lab at the State University stripped away the wind and rain, leaving a voice so clear it made the technician blanch. Male voice, distorted. "Help me, they're coming." Sound, wet crunch, like bone snapping. Background, chanting, unintelligible, rhythmic drumming. The cadence matched a 911 call from October 12, 2012, the day hiker Lucas Voss vanished. His brother Eli had posted the call online, begging for answers. Lucas's last words, "Help me, they're coming," before the line died. I met Eli at a diner outside the park. He was lean and sunburned, with Lucas's same crooked smile. He slid a shoebox across the table. Photos of Lucas at trailheads, Lucas knee-deep in ferns, Lucas's neon green tent pitched under a gnarled oak. "That tree," I said, pointing. "Where is it?" "Half a mile east of the old fire tower." "Why?" The tower had burned in '94, but I knew that oak. Its branches clawed over the 1908 plaque. The next storm rolled in at midnight. I packed a GoPro, a can of bear spray, and Eli's photo of the oak. The scream began as lightning split the sky. Closer now, louder, hungrier. My flashlight beam caught shapes in the undergrowth, stones arranged in a spiral, their centers stained black. The oak loomed ahead, its trunk scarred with symbols, overlapping circles, jagged lines. Not graffiti, tool marks, old and deliberate. Behind it, a fissure split the hillside, a narrow crack veiled by ferns. The smell hit me first. Iron and rot, like a butcher's dumpster in August. Inside, the walls were scored with the same symbols. My light trembled over piles of deer bones, a rusted chainsaw blade, and a rotted backpack. Neon green. Eli confirmed it. "That's his," he whispered, clutching the mold-stained fabric. "They said he drowned in the river. Said they found his boots downstream." But the river was miles away. We reported it. The police sent a team, but by the time they arrived, the bones were gone. The fissure had collapsed, they said. Natural erosion. No report was filed. Mara, the head ranger, quit the next day. She left a note on my desk. "They'll fire you if you keep digging." Let it go. But Eli wouldn't. He spent nights scouring forums, finding others who'd heard the scream. A backpacker in 2003 who swore a ghost chased him off the North Trails. A couple in 2015 who found a stone spiral near the plaque. Their photos vanished from their camera. A park volunteer who quit after finding a deer carcass arranged in a ritualistic pose in 2018. All dismissed as hoaxes or hallucinations. Last week, a letter arrived. No postmark, no return address. Inside was a Polaroid of the oak tree, its symbols freshly painted in what looked like charcoal. The note read, "They're still watching. Stop digging." I didn't stop. I spent days in the county records office, digging through land deeds. In 1908, the North Ridge was owned by a timber company accused of union disputes, a sanitized term for hanging strike organizers. The company dissolved in 1911. Their land became park property in 1936. No graves were moved. Eli and I meet tonight. The forecast calls for thunderstorms. We'll hike to the plaque, his brother's backpack in my bag. The park doesn't know I kept it. The symbols on the oak match those in the fissure. The stains on the stones? Lab tests came back inconclusive, but I bet my pension it's blood. Mara was right. They'll fire me for this. But sometimes, when the rain comes, I stand at the edge of the North Ridge and press my palm to the plaque. The hum returns, vibrating through my bones, and I swear I hear voices, not screaming but chanting. Eli says he hears it too. We'll record it tonight. They found my truck at the trailhead, engine running, door ajar. My GoPro was inside, footage corrupted. The plaque? Gone. Bulldozed, they said, for trail expansion. Eli disappeared a week later. His wife says he went camping. But I know the truth. The screams are louder now. Story number 10. The Radioactive Boy, a Chronicle of Silence. It began on a calm morning in March, 9 years after the tsunami. I was on a research vessel contracted by my university to monitor marine radiation levels near Fukushima's exclusion zone. My job was simple: collect water samples, log cesium-137 readings, and avoid the skeletal fishing trawlers still drifting in the no-go radius. The buoy was a relic, a battered DR-44 model, its solar panels crusted with barnacles. TEPCO had decommissioned most of these after 2015, but this one blinked stubbornly on our sonar. When I hauled it aboard, the serial number was scratched off. Inside its data port, we found a corroded transmitter, still pulsing. "Help!" My assistant, Akira, laughed. "Glitch," he said. "Old tech dies weird." But the signal repeated every 37 seconds, precise as a heartbeat. Back at the lab in Sendai, we decoded the Morse into coordinates. 37 degrees, 25 minutes, 17 seconds north. 141 degrees, 1 minute 57 seconds east. 12 nautical miles northeast of Fukushima Daiichi. Akira pulled up TEPCO's 2011 disaster logs. "That's not a reactor site. It's a dead zone. They dumped debris there after the tsunami." The water samples told a different story. Cesium-137 was negligible, but strontium-90 levels were 300 times higher than the EPA's safety threshold. Worse, the mass spectrometer flagged an unknown isotope, a jagged spike on the readout. Dr. Sato, our lead chemist, called it Tohoku 214. "It bonds to organic tissue like a parasite," he said. "I've never seen anything like it." Akira refused to dive. "That area's cursed. Even the Coast Guard avoids it." So I hired Kenji, a freelance diver from Iwaki. Kenji's footage was fragmentary. His GoPro flared with static as he descended, the seabed barren and cracked. "There's a structure," he radioed, "concrete, like a bunker." The video showed a low, angular ruin, half buried in sediment. Its walls were webbed with coral that pulsed faintly, as if breathing. Kenji's light caught claw marks, deep gouges in the concrete, wider than a man's torso. Then the screen erupted in noise. The audio survived, a wet, grinding roar, like a subway train dragging through viscera. Kenji screamed. The feed died. 2 days later, his body washed ashore in Hirono. The coroner listed acute radiation poisoning, but the photos Akira leaked showed tumors, lumpy, iridescent growths that glowed under UV light. TEPCO denied the buoy existed. DR-44s were retired in 2015, their press officer said. But I found a procurement invoice from 2020. 12 DR-44X buoys, Sector 7 deployment. Sector 7 wasn't on any map. A former engineer found me at a bar in Tomioka. His name was Hideo, and he smelled of sake and fear. "They built a backup reactor in 2009, he slurred. "Underground, under the seabed. Project Izanami. Cheaper to dump waste straight into the trench." He sketched a blueprint on a napkin. A compact reactor 50 meters below the ocean floor, connected to Fukushima Daiichi by a service tunnel. The tsunami flooded it. Meltdown started a week after the news said the crisis was resolved. They tried to seal it with concrete, but the core's still burning. I asked about the claw marks. He ordered another drink. "You don't want to know." I hacked the buoy's feed. Every March 11th, it broadcast help for 6 hours. The rest of the year, it emitted sonar pulses, not for mapping, but communication. Slowed down, the pulses resolved into voices. Male voice, distorted. "Please, it's in the water." Female voice. "Don't trust the numbers." Dr. Sato identified the isotope as a hybrid, reactor fuel blended with deep-sea extremophiles. "It rewrites DNA," he said. "Not random mutations, targeted ones." He showed me a zebrafish exposed to Tohoku 214. Its scales had hardened into bony plates. Its eyes glowed faintly blue. "It's adapting. fast. I went alone. The bunker's entrance was a jagged maw, concrete teeth dripping with sludge. Inside, the reactor core glowed through cracked shielding, a sullen blue halo that made my Geiger counter scream. The fish here were wrong. Flatfish with jagged, human-like teeth, anemones that recoiled at light, and something else, a shadow that moved against the current, too large, too jointed to be a shark. My oxygen gauge flashed. I surfaced, but the boat was gone. They found me drifting near Okuma. The Shinseimaru's captain claimed I'd fallen overboard. TEPCO revoked my research credentials. Dr. Sato quit. Akira vanished. Last week, a package arrived. No return address. Inside was Kenji's GoPro, footage restored. The static cleared to show the bunker. Something moved in the dark. A creature with too many limbs, its body a grotesque fusion of crustacean and reactor slag. It dragged a mangled DR-44 buoy, the Morse light still blinking. Help. I'm writing this from a rented room. My gums bleed. My skin peels in translucent sheets. The doctors say it's stress-related, but I know the truth. The buoy's still out there. Story number 11. The Doll Graveyard. The first time I saw the photo, I thought it was a joke. It was 2017, and I'd been sifting through a box of Weimar-era postcards at a flea market in Hamburg. Between shots of cobblestone streets and faded beer gardens was a black and white image of a funeral. Not for a person, for dolls. A dozen villagers in somber wool coats stood around a pit in a forest, their faces blurred by the camera's long exposure. At their feet lay porcelain dolls, their limbs arranged neatly, their glass eyes staring upward. Scrawled on the back, Waldkirch, 1923. They saw too much. The vendor shrugged when I asked. Old family trash. Take it for €2. I should have burned it. Waldkirch wasn't on any map. It took weeks to find a reference. A footnote in a regional census from 1911. Population 89. Notable for wood carving and doll making. Disbanded, 1925. No reason given. I drove there in October, the Autobahn dissolving into gravel roads that twisted into the black forest. The village was a skeleton, roofless stone cottages, a church with a collapsed steeple, and a clearing where the trees formed a perfect circle. The ground was pocked with shallow depressions, each the size of a child's grave. Local legends were sparse. An old woman in Freiburg muttered about a sickness that drove Waldkirch mad. A bartender in Triberg claimed the dolls were buried to quiet their eyes. Their eyes? I asked. He poured another schnapps. They say the dolls started watching. It appeared in a Berlin thrift shop 6 months later. I'd stopped to browse vintage coats and saw her perched on a shelf. A porcelain doll in a moth-eaten lace dress, her face cracked but eerily serene. Her eyes were the wrong color. One blue, one brown, with pupils that seemed to dilate in the light. The shop owner crossed herself when I bought it. Came in last week. No note. That night, I dreamed of a forest. Snow crunched underfoot, and the doll sat at the base of an oak, her head tilted toward a cottage. A woman screamed inside. A man shouted in German, "Burn it! Burn them all!" I woke to the smell of smoke. The second doll surfaced in Munich. Same mismatched eyes, same lace dress. A college student sold it to me after her roommate drowned in the Izar. Elisa swore the doll made her see things, she said. Like how she'd die. I didn't believe her, until I touched it. The vision hit like a fever. I was underwater, weeds tangling my ankles, lungs burning. Above me, sunlight fractured through the surface, Elisa's view as she sank. The student found me on the floor. Told you, she said, pocketing my cash. By 2020, I'd tracked 17 dolls. Each resurfaced after a death. An antique dealer in Cologne collapsed after seeing fire in the doll's eyes. Heart attack. A nurse in Dresden leapt from her balcony, ranting about hands in the walls. Her doll's eyes showed a shadow pushing her. My ex-husband, who mocked my research, texted, "I see them too now," before his car veered into the Rhine. The visions escalated. The dolls whispered in Old German, their voices layered with static. I stopped sleeping. Waldkirch's archives were sealed in a Stuttgart basement, forgotten until I bribed a clerk. The village's doll makers had been famous until 1923, when a fire killed the burgomaster's daughter. Her favorite doll survived, its eyes fused black by heat. Then the rumors began. A midwife's journal from 1924. The doll watches me. At night, it shows me the child's burns, her skin peeling like paint. A priest's letter. They beg me to exorcise the dolls. Say they see the future in their eyes. God forgive us, we buried them alive. The final entry was a police report. Village abandoned. Cause mass delusion. Recommend demolition. It arrived yesterday. No postmark, just a box left at my door. Inside was a doll with no face. Just smooth porcelain, featureless except for the eyes. One blue, one brown. I know what comes next. When I lift her, the vision is instant. Me, writing this at my desk, the doll beside me. A shadow fills the doorway. Hands, cold, hard, porcelain, close around my throat. The doll's eyes glow. They always knew. Story number 12. The Unseen Babysitter. Clara and I bought the house on Maplewood Drive because it was all we could afford. Built in 1952, it had crown molding, hardwood floors, and a nursery with peeling yellow wallpaper that Ellie loved. We didn't mind the stains on the ceiling or the way the pipes groaned. We were first-time parents, exhausted and optimistic. Then Ellie started laughing at the corner. The wingback chair was there when we moved in, upholstered in faded blue velvet, one leg slightly shorter than the others. Ellie would crawl toward it, arms outstretched, babbling, "Nana," like it was a game. At first, we laughed. Maybe she's imagining a friend, Clara said. But when Ellie began refusing naps unless the chair was in her line of sight, we stopped laughing. Clara installed the baby monitor after Ellie woke up screaming for 3 nights straight. Not her usual hungry cry, but a panicked wail, like she'd seen something. The monitor was top of the line, night vision, temperature sensors, and a microphone sensitive enough to catch a whisper. The first audio clip was harmless. Rustling sheets, Ellie's sleepy coos. The second, at 2:17 a.m., made Clara spill her coffee. Audio transcript, March 14th, 2023. Static. Humming. Hush, little one, the moon is weeping. Static. Faint giggle. Clara froze. That's not hush, little baby. I Googled the lyrics. The only hit was a Reddit thread titled, "Did your nanny sing this lullaby?" From 2009. A user named Missing Roz wrote, "My nanny vanished in 1983. Cops said she ran off, but I heard her singing this the night she disappeared. They called me crazy." The thread was deleted by morning. Clara's a journalist. She doesn't let go. She spent days at the Hazelwood Library, scrolling through microfiche of the Hazelwood Gazette. June 14th, 1983. Local nanny disappears. Family claims foul play. The article named Rosalind Roz Varga, 22, a Hungarian immigrant who worked for the Hendersons. No photo, no follow-up. The librarian, Mrs. Doyle, leaned over Clara's shoulder. "Roz babysat my cousin. Sweet girl. Sang folk songs in Hungarian. After she vanished, the Hendersons moved to Florida. House sat empty for years. Why didn't the police investigate?" Mrs. Doyle lowered her voice. "Roy Henderson owned the lumber mill. Half the town worked for him. Clara found the 1980 Hazelwood High yearbook at a flea market. Roz's photo was on page 43. Dark curls, wide-set eyes, a smile that didn't reach her cheeks. Someone had gouged her face out with a box cutter. The seller, an elderly man with nicotine-yellow nails, shrugged. Came from the Hendersons' estate sale. They left boxes in the attic. That night, the monitor picked up a new sound. Audio transcript, March 21st, 2023. Static. Whispering in accented English. I tried to leave. The baby, they won't let me. Sob. Thud. Clara deleted the file before I could hear it. The basement smelled of damp concrete and mothballs. We found a cardboard box labeled Xmas decorations, filled with tinsel, a cracked snow globe, and a diary. Roz's diary. May 15th, 1983. Alice is my light. She claps when I sing Hello Sillig. Mr. H says I'm distracting her. From what? June 10th, 1983. He followed me to the park, said I'm too close to Alice. I told Mrs. H. She said I'm paranoid. June 12th, 1983. Found photos in his desk. Alice. Other babies. Newspaper clippings. I'm taking her tonight. Police won't listen. The next pages were torn out. Roy Henderson was 81, living at Pineview Assisted Living. His hands shook as he clutched a photo of Alice. Roz stole her. I saved my girl. Clara pressed him. How? His voice dropped to a rasp. Sheriff said they'd make it go away. Buried her things in the yard. But she comes back. In the walls, in the chair. That night, the monitor caught a man's growl. Should have burned it all. The police found nothing. No diary, no box. Roy died 2 days later, his face frozen in a scream. Ellie still talks to the chair. Last week I found a locket under the rug. Inside, a curl of dark hair and a slip of paper with Boxanat. Forgive me, in Hungarian. Clara wants to move. I don't. Because when the monitor glitches, I hear Roz singing to Ellie. And the chair's never empty. Story number 13. The Bioluminescent Drowners. The first time we saw the lights, we thought they were tamilok, the glowworms that cling to mangrove roots during monsoon season. But these lights moved. My brother Jaime and I were pulling up nets off the coastline, the moon hidden behind storm clouds. The sea was ink black, the air thick with salt and the sour tang of rotting seaweed. Then the water beneath our banca began to pulse, a soft, blue-green radiance swirling in patterns that made my chest tighten. Jaime leaned over the edge, his face lit like a ghost's. Ano yan? He whispered. What is that? The lights coiled upward, resolving into shapes. Human shapes, translucent, glowing, their arms outstretched as if clawing toward the surface. Jaime crossed himself. I gunned the engine. The elders in Barangay Talisay called them nilalang ng dagat, sea spirits. But Lolo Ben, the oldest fisherman in the village, spat betel nut into the surf and said, They're not spirits, they're memories. He told us about the San Andres, a Spanish slave ship that sank in 1783. Loaded with indios from Luzon, bound for Mexico. Chains rusted, so they threw the sick overboard. But the sea didn't take them. Not all the way. According to Lolo Ben, the drowned clawed their way back, their bodies fused with dinoflagellates, the tiny creatures that make the sea glow. They light the way for others to join them, he said, or to drag their masters down. Jaime laughed. I didn't. The Japanese divers came in June, hunting for shipwrecks. They'd seen the lights on sonar, a cluster of heat signatures where no fish should be. Offered us 50,000 pesos to guide them. We anchored where the San Andres was said to sink. The water was clear, the noon sun spearing down to a coral-crusted hull. The Japanese team went in first, their wetsuits sleek as seal pelts. Jaime and I followed. The ship was a skeleton, ribs jutting from the sand. But the shackles? They were pristine. Iron cuffs, hundreds of them scattered like seashells. No rust, no rot. One of the divers, Akira, grabbed a pair. The moment his fingers closed around the metal, his regulator slipped. He flailed, eyes wild, as if fighting an invisible current. We dragged him up. Drowned, he rasped on the boat. I felt hands. That night, Akira woke screaming, said the walls were closing in, water rising from the floorboards. He fled to Manila, left his gear behind. Jaime started seeing things too. Shadows pooling in our mother's palioc pots. Faces in the foam of his morning coffee. Then came the nightmares. Visions of sinking, iron weights on his ankles, glowing hands dragging him deeper. I found him one dawn waist deep in the surf, shackles clutched to his chest. "They're singing," he said. "Can't you hear it?" The doctor in Calapan diagnosed psychosis. Prescribed pills Jaime never took. I dove alone after that. The shackles glowed now, faintly, as if absorbing the dinoflagellate's light. I retrieved one, the metal icy even in tropical heat. That night, the visions came. A woman's voice, Tagalog. They threw us over still chained. The sea filled our lungs, but we did not die. We became the water. A man screamed, Spanish. "Sacadme, sacadme, get me out!" I woke choking, my hut flooded to the knees. Salt water dripped from the ceiling, though it hadn't rained. Lolo Ben died in July. His last words, "Bury me at sea, with them." We took his body to the San Andres. As we lowered him, the lights surged, a galaxy of blue-green orbs rising to meet his shroud. Jaime leapt in, shackles in hand. "I'll make it stop!" he screamed. The water swallowed him whole. They found his body tangled in the ship's rigging, skin luminescent, eyes milky as a stingray's. No bloat, no decay, just a faint glow under his fingernails. The Japanese team abandoned their expedition. The shackles? Gone. Washed ashore, the mayor said, melted for scrap. But last full moon, I saw them again. A trail of lights snaking from the deep to the beach, shackles glinting in their wake. The diver's boat sits rusting in the harbor. Jaime's voice whispers in the tide now. "Kapatid, join us. The water's warm." I'm writing this in the hills, far from the shore. But the nights are long, and that concludes our chilling accounts. But remember, these stories aren't just fiction. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more terrifying true tales. Sleep tight if you can. Until next time, stay safe in the dark.